So now there's big development happening there. From the expert's perspective, it doesn't make sense to build these big buildings.
I'm sorry that question unfortunately didn't make the microphone. Our program tonight is Secrets of Treasure Island, Uncovering the Navy's Radioactive Legacy.
My father's name was Nicholas Kane, and he was a colonel, and he attended one of the first classes at the Navy Radiation Defense Laboratory in Treasure Island. He was there to study the effects of radiation and to learn about radiation from the atomic bombs.
It is a pleasure for me to introduce tonight our moderator, Matt Smith, with the Center for Investigative Reporting. Matt will introduce you to our distinguished panel members.
Thank you very much for coming. The distinguished co-host that I will introduce is my great colleague, Katharine Miesckowski.
Treasure Island is scheduled to be redeveloped to become home to 20,000 people. It's been a military base which is now being cleaned up. And during that cleanup, some San Franciscans have been living in old military housing on the former base. Matt and I spent a year looking at the Navy's radioactive waste cleanup, which has been heavily criticized by its own workers and government health regulators.
My role was to see if there was a need for a cleanup. The first day we went on site, I was holding the instrument out the window, and we picked up readings from inside the truck. To see something just riding by was surprising. The radioactive materials was scattered all over the site in places where they said there shouldn't have been any material. When they found out that I had received the exposure, they no longer required my services. It's probably areas of the island that's okay to live on, but every area where I was working in, I don't believe anyone should be living there. There's a lot of historical data on the island that they hide. There's some areas, they know they got issues, so they got them barricaded off so no one's living in those areas. It bothers me now when I think about it.
We have three distinguished panelists with us tonight. They'll help us understand what's been going on at Treasure Island. Kai Vetter is a nuclear physicist and professor in residence at UC Berkeley. He has more than 20 years of experience in radiation detection and measurement. George Moore comes to us from the Monterey Institute of International Studies. Until 2012, he was an International Atomic Energy Agency official concerned with tracking the world's radioactive material and helping make sure it didn't get into the wrong hands. Dale Smith is a longtime member of citizen advisory boards that monitor toxic and radioactive cleanup at former military bases in the Bay Area, including Treasure Island.
Ships were contaminated inside and out and needed to be completely overhauled by atomic bomb tests.
There were these small buttons that marked each sound-powered phone location. They were filled with a radioactive phosphor. Some people probably would take these buttons off. They would be disposed of. Radium-226 has a 1,600-year half-life. So those things that were produced during the Second World War have hardly decayed at all. At one of the schools, they had a spill, there was contamination, and they had to decontaminate both people and equipment and even privately owned vehicles. After this first survey in 2006, there were discrete samples found, some of them in the housing area, which formerly had been a solid waste disposal area. In other words, a garbage dump.
I have just recently found out that I live on the edge of a burn pit. So That would be PCBs. This would be the 27 plus contaminants, including dioxin. So there are 14 isotopes, not just cesium and radium. They're in unknown areas, and coincidentally, all of these sites have been within our housing area. And do you not feel that that is a true risk to human beings who currently live there? And wouldn't it be advisable for them, in your estimation, to remove the residents currently so that they can do a thorough examination of this? I mean, if it is truly low level, why dig it up at all?
I mean, obviously there are still some potential radium contaminated materials stuck in the soil.
Any of the details.
To the physicists, no one's here is really addressing the health issues that come out of exposure and what this means to a transient population, and what may be anecdotal and what may be very data-specific outcomes in people's health over the last 4 or 5 decades. Nobody's pieced that together because there hasn't been enough political will on the part of the Navy and from the city and county to really uncover and do a deep dive. The city knows every resident that's lived there because they've signed leases, and the Navy knows every resident. And I'm wondering if anybody on this panel would like to address what it would take to have a real, genuine epidemiological survey conducted of people who lived on the island to see the cause and effect exposure issues.
I have tried for 20 years. The Navy has denied that they know everybody, and when I finally pointed out to them that they have everybody's social security number, and don't tell me you don't, because starting in the 30s, everybody got social security numbers. They will refuse to do any kind of long-term analysis of people's health who lived there during the 40s, 50s, and 60s, which is the most dangerous time for everything, including VOCs, SVOCs, PAHs, all of that.
Given all the uncertainties, I think it will be extremely difficult to go back and to estimate the impact.
I think unfortunately it would be very difficult to determine.
We do have access to roughly 1,000 military members, and we're matching them now currently with, present residents who live there now.